A nuclear power plant's hottest mistake became a crocodile's perfect home. To understand why a nuclear reactor's waste became a lifeline, you first need to know just how close American crocodiles came to vanishing entirely. By the 1970s, fewer than 500 remained in the wild. That's not a thriving population. That's a species at the absolute edge of extinction. Hunters had decimated them for their valuable hides, and developers were bulldozing the mangrove swamps and brackish waterways where crocodiles breed and nest. Habitat destruction combined with relentless hunting meant the American crocodile had nowhere left to go. The species didn't need a solution, it needed a miracle. Here's where the story takes an unexpected turn. In the 1970s, Florida Power and Light built the Turkey Point nuclear facility just south of Miami. Like all nuclear reactors, it needed massive amounts of water to cool its systems. The plant would draw water from nearby canals, heat it to extreme temperatures, and discharge it back into the same waterways. By any environmental standard, this was a problem. Hot water pollution, thermal discharge, dead zones, regulators were genuinely concerned. But something remarkable happened that nobody predicted. American crocodiles, which had been dying out across Florida, started showing up in these heated canals. And they didn't just visit. They stayed. They nested. They bred. The warm water created something crocodiles desperately needed: stable, year-round temperatures perfect for incubation. In natural Florida wetlands, crocodile eggs are vulnerable to temperature swings. The nests fail. The hatchlings don't survive. But in Turkey Point's artificially heated canals, the water stayed consistently warm, essentially mimicking the tropical conditions crocodiles had evolved for. What was industrial waste to humans became a 24/7 breeding incubator for a dying species. The crocodiles didn't care that the heat came from a nuclear reactor. They only knew it worked. Within decades, Turkey Point's thermal discharge zone became the single most important breeding ground for American crocodiles in the entire United States. Here's where the story takes its strangest turn. When Florida Power and Light built Turkey Point in the late 1960s, nobody anticipated what would happen next. The facility's cooling system pumped massive volumes of water through the reactor core and then discharged it into nearby canals at temperatures between 85 and 95 degrees Fahrenheit. Environmental regulators saw this as a liability, thermal pollution that could damage local ecosystems. But American crocodiles saw it differently. They saw home. Crocodiles are cold-blooded reptiles. They need warm water to digest food, mate, and incubate eggs. In Florida's natural wetlands, water temperatures fluctuate seasonally, which meant breeding seasons were unpredictable and short. Turkey Point's discharge created something nature rarely offers in South Florida: stable, year-round warmth. The crocodiles didn't just visit, they stayed. They nested. They bred. By the 1980s, scientists monitoring the population realized the impossible had happened. The reactor's thermal output had become the primary breeding ground for the entire American crocodile population. What started as an environmental problem was now the species' lifeline. The population that had dwindled to fewer than 500 grew steadily, reaching over 2,000 individuals by the early 2000s. The numbers kept climbing. A nuclear power plant had become a crocodile nursery. Here's what makes this story genuinely unsettling in the best way possible. We spend so much time rightfully worried about nuclear power plants, the radiation, the meltdowns, the waste that stays dangerous for millennia. Turkey Point was built in the shadow of the Everglades, one of America's most sensitive ecosystems. By every measure, this should have been a disaster. Instead, the very thing that made environmentalists nervous became the reason an entire species didn't vanish. The thermal discharge that regulators initially fought to shut down is now protected because crocodiles depend on it. Scientists had to choose between enforcing pollution standards and letting an endangered species go extinct. They chose the crocodiles. That choice forced a hard truth. Sometimes our industrial footprint creates accidental habitats. Not intentionally, not through careful planning, but through the sheer mechanics of how we generate power. It's a reminder that nature is far more opportunistic than we give it credit for. The American crocodile didn't care that its salvation came from a nuclear reactor. It only cared that the water was warm and reliable. That's the uncomfortable irony. The infrastructure we fear most saved a species that human carelessness nearly destroyed. So here's what the Turkey Point story actually teaches us. conservation doesn't always look like we expect it to. A nuclear reactor's waste heat wasn't supposed to save anything, yet it became the American crocodile's lifeline, lifting the species from 500 individuals to over 2,000. When extinction looms, sometimes salvation comes from the most unlikely places. The real lesson is simple. Stay flexible, stay creative, and never dismiss the unconventional when survival is on the line.